The silence in her eyes spoke volumes, but Lilian Shaw had never uttered a single word in her 20 years of life. The day they dragged her to the auction block in Jerome Junction, Arizona Territory, 1878, was the day she believed her worth had been reduced to the coins jangling in men's pockets, until Beau Blackstone stepped forward from the crowd. His weathered Stetson clutched against his chest, and spoke the words that would forever change their lives. The morning sun beat down mercilessly on Jerome Junction, the dusty mining town nestled in the northern Arizona Territory. The stench of sweat and whiskey permeated the air as townsfolk gathered for the unusual auction taking place outside Harmon's General Store. Most auctions in these parts involved livestock or property, but today's merchandise was human: a young woman with hair the color of wheat and eyes that reflected the endless blue Arizona sky. Lilian stood with her head bowed, her slender wrists bound with rough rope that bit into her skin. Her simple cotton dress, once white but now stained with the red dust of the territory, hung loosely on her thin frame. She had been working as a kitchen helper at the Copper Crown Hotel until the owner discovered her inability to speak wasn't an act of defiance but her natural condition. "Ain't no use keeping a mute girl around," the hotel owner had declared. "Can't take orders proper, can't call for help if there's trouble." So he'd sold her contract to Silas Mercer, a man known for acquiring and selling people with nowhere else to go: indentured servants, orphans, and those considered defective in some way. Silas paced in front of Lilian now, his voice booming across the gathering crowd. "Gentlemen and ladies," he added with a tip of his hat to the few women present, "I present to you a strong, healthy female, age 20. She'll work from sunup to sundown without a single complaint guaranteed." This brought laughter from the crowd. "She can cook, clean, and mend. Perfect for a household in need of domestic help or a business requiring discreet service." From the back of the crowd, Beau Blackstone observed with growing disgust. At 32, he'd seen much of the ugliness the frontier had to offer: Indian wars, claim jumpers, the desperation of boom towns gone bust, but the selling of a young woman, because of a condition she couldn't control, struck him as a particular kind of evil. Beau had come to town to sell cattle and purchase supplies for his modest ranch, 15 miles outside Jerome Junction. The Lazy Bee wasn't the biggest spread in the territory, but it was his, hard-won after years of working other men's land. He hadn't planned on acquiring anything but salt, coffee, ammunition, and perhaps a new shirt, but something about the young woman's quiet dignity in the face of such humiliation moved him. "Starting bid is $20, Silas announced. "Who'll give me 20 for this fine, quiet worker?" $10, shouted a miner with a scraggly beard. "Gentlemen, please, she's worth more than that," Silas protested. 15, offered the owner of the Silver Dollar Saloon, eyeing Lilian in a way that made Beau's blood boil. The bidding continued, reaching $30 a month's wages for many in these parts. The saloon owner seemed determined, and Beau knew exactly what fate awaited Lilian if that man won. He'd seen too many young women forced into that life. $50, Beau called out, pushing his way through the crowd. All heads turned to look at the tall, broad-shouldered rancher with sun-bronzed skin and eyes the color of whiskey. The saloon owner frowned. $55. $75, Beau countered immediately. A murmur rippled through the crowd. $75 was serious money. "You sure about this, Blackstone?" the saloon owner asked. "She's defective goods. Can't even scream if your house catches fire." Beau stepped forward until he was standing directly in front of the auction block. For the first time, Lilian raised her eyes to meet his, and what he saw there wasn't fear or resignation but a fierce, burning pride. $100, Beau stated firmly. Silas Mercer's eyes widened with greed. Going once, going twice. 110, the saloon owner tried weakly. 150, Beau responded without hesitation. The crowd gasped. That was more than most men made in 6 months. The saloon owner shook his head and stepped back. Sold, Silas declared triumphantly, to Beau Blackstone for $150. As the crowd dispersed, Beau approached Lilian, who still stood rigid on the auction block. He reached up and gently untied her bound wrists, mindful of the raw skin beneath the ropes. "My name is Beau Blackstone," he said softly. "I own a small ranch outside of town." Lilian rubbed her chafed wrists, her expression guarded as she studied the tall man before her. "I don't expect anything improper from you," Beau continued, understanding the unspoken question in her eyes. "My housekeeper, Mrs. Abernathy, died 3 months back. Place is a mess, and I'm a terrible cook." He attempted a smile. "I'll provide you with your own room with a lock on the door, fair wages once your contract is fulfilled, and safe passage anywhere you want to go after that." Lilian's expression remained cautious, but some of the tension left her shoulders. "I know you can't speak," Beau said, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "They sold you for being mute, but that doesn't make you worth any less as a person." His eyes held hers steadily. "Then let my voice be yours till it heals. Whatever you need to say, I'll say it for you. Whatever you need others to understand, I'll make them understand." Something flickered in Lilian's eyes, surprise, perhaps, or the first tentative spark of hope. She gave a small, almost imperceptible nod. "Do you have any belongings?" Beau asked. Lilian shook her head. "Right then. First stop is the general store. You'll need clothes, shoes, and whatever else women require." He smiled again, more naturally this time. "Mrs. Abernathy always said I was hopeless when it came to understanding the necessities of a lady, so you'll have to help me figure that out." As they walked away from the auction block, Beau felt the stares of the townsfolk. He knew what they were thinking, that he'd bought himself a woman for unsavory purposes. Let them think what they wanted. He'd never much cared for the opinions of others, especially those who'd stand by and watch a human being sold like cattle. Inside Harmon's general store, Beau directed Lilian to the women's section. "Take whatever you need," he said. "Don't worry about the cost." Lilian hesitated, then moved cautiously toward the clothing. Her fingers traced the fabric of a simple blue dress, testing its quality. Martha Harmon, the proprietor's wife, approached with a sympathetic smile. "I saw what happened out there," she said quietly to Beau. "That was a decent thing you did, Mr. Blackstone." Beau shrugged uncomfortably. "Wasn't decent, was necessary." "Still," Martha persisted, "not many men would have intervened." She turned to Lilian. "Let me help you, dear. A young woman needs proper things." Over the next hour, Martha helped Lilian select 3 dresses, undergarments, a nightgown, a heavy coat for the winter months, sturdy boots, and a pair of more delicate shoes. Beau added a hairbrush, soap, and other personal items to the growing pile on the counter. "She'll need a way to communicate," Martha suggested. "I have some small slates and chalk." Beau nodded, and Martha added these to their purchases. When everything was tallied, Beau paid without comment, though the amount was considerable. As they left the store with their packages, he noticed Lilian clutching the small slate to her chest like a shield. "My wagon's at the livery," Beau said, leading the way down the dusty main street. "It's about a 3-hour ride to the ranch. You hungry before we head out?" Lilian hesitated, then nodded slightly. "Peterson's Cafe does a decent stew," Beau suggested. "Nothing fancy, but it's filling." Inside the cafe, they faced the first test of Beau's promise. The waitress approached their table with a curious glance at Lilian. "What'll it be, Mr. Blackstone?" she asked, her eyes darting between them. Lilian picked up her slate and quickly wrote something before turning it toward Beau. "The lady would like the beef stew and some water," Beau translated. "I'll have the same with coffee." After the waitress left, Beau leaned forward slightly. "That worked well enough. We'll figure out a system as we go." Lilian wrote on her slate again. "Thank you." "No need to thank me," Beau replied, feeling suddenly awkward. "I should be thanking you for agreeing to help with the ranch house. It's in sorry shape, I'm afraid." "Why?" Lilian wrote, her expression earnest. "Why is the house in sorry shape?" Beau asked, confused. She shook her head and wrote, "Why did you buy my contract?" Beau was silent for a long moment. "I've seen what happens to young women sold to men like that saloon owner," he finally said. "Couldn't stand by and let it happen. Not if I could prevent it." Lilian studied him, her blue eyes searching his face for deception. Whatever she saw there seemed to satisfy her, because she nodded and returned to her stew when it arrived. The journey to the Lazy Bee Ranch took them through spectacular country red rock formations giving way to pine forests as they climbed in elevation. Lilian sat beside Beau on the wagon seat, occasionally writing questions on her slate. "Where are you from originally? How long have you had your ranch? Do you have family nearby?" Beau answered each question thoughtfully. He'd been born in Kentucky, but had come west after the war between the states, seeking a fresh start. He'd worked as a cowhand for 10 years before saving enough to buy his own small spread 5 years ago. And no, he had no family left. His parents had died before the war, and his only brother had fallen at Shiloh. "What about you?" he asked, glancing at her profile as she gazed at the landscape. "Where are you from?" Lilian wrote for a moment, then showed him. "Ohio. Parents died of fever 3 years ago. Came west with uncle. He died in mining accident last year." "I'm sorry," Beau said quietly. "That's a lot of loss for someone so young." She shrugged and wrote, "Life is hard here." "That it is," Beau agreed, "but it has its moments of beauty too." As if to prove his point, they crested a hill, and the valley that held the Lazy Bee spread out below them. The setting sun bathed the modest ranch house, barn, and corrals in golden light. A small creek wound through the property, its banks lined with cottonwoods whose leaves shimmered in the breeze. "Home," Beau said simply. "Not much to look at compared to some spreads, but it's mine." Lilian wrote, "It's beautiful." The ranch house was indeed in disarray when they arrived. Beau lit lamps and showed Lilian through the 4-room structure a main room that served as both kitchen and living area. Beau's bedroom, a small room that had been Mrs. Abernathy's and would now be Lilian's, and a storage room. Everything was coated with a fine layer of dust. Dishes were piled in the dry sink, and clothes were strewn about haphazardly. "Told you it was a mess," Beau said sheepishly. "I've been focused on the cattle and haven't had much time for housekeeping. Mrs. Abernathy would be scandalized." "I'll start tomorrow," Lilian wrote. "Too dark now." "Of course," Beau agreed. "You must be tired after everything today. Let me show you to your room." He carried her purchases into the small bedroom and lit the lamp on the bedside table. The room was simple but clean, with a narrow bed, a dresser, and a small table. A window overlooked the corral and the mountains beyond. "There's a lock," Beau pointed out, indicating the solid bolt on the inside of the door. "Like I promised. This is your space, and no one will enter without your permission." Lilian nodded, the tension in her shoulders easing slightly. "The washroom is out back," Beau continued. "It's just an outhouse, but I built a small shed next to it with a washtub. I'll heat water for you if you want to clean up." He paused. "I'll leave you to get settled. Good night, Miss Shaw." As he turned to go, Lilian quickly wrote on her slate, "Lilian, please," or Lily. Beau smiled. "Good night, Lily. Welcome to the Lazy Bee." The next morning, Beau woke to the unfamiliar smell of coffee brewing and bacon frying. For a moment, he was disoriented, thinking perhaps Mrs. Abernathy's death had been a dream. Then he remembered Lily. He dressed quickly and found her in the kitchen, her back to him as she worked at the stove. She'd already swept the floor and organized the scattered dishes. She donned one of her new dresses, a simple brown calico that suited her slender frame. "Good morning," Beau said, not wanting to startle her. Lily turned and offered a small smile, gesturing to the table where she'd set 2 plates. "You didn't have to cook breakfast," Beau said, though the sight and smell of real food made his stomach growl appreciatively. "But I won't complain." They ate in comfortable silence, Beau occasionally commenting on his plans for the day and the chores that needed doing around the ranch. When they finished, Lily reached for her slate. "What work would you like me to do first?" "The house needs a thorough cleaning," Beau admitted. "But don't overwork yourself. Take breaks when you need to." After breakfast, Beau headed out to check on his cattle and repair a section of fence that had been damaged in a recent storm. When he returned at midday, he was astonished by the transformation. The main room was spotless, the floor swept and mopped, surfaces dusted, and dishes cleaned and properly stored. Lily had found a faded tablecloth in a drawer and laid it on the table, with a jar of wildflowers as a centerpiece. "This place hasn't looked this good since Mrs. Abernathy was alive," Beau said, genuinely impressed. "Thank you." Lily ducked her head at the praise but couldn't hide her pleased expression. She'd written a note and left it on the table. "Lunch is in the warming oven. Going to wash linens." After lunch, Beau returned to his outdoor chores. From time to time, he caught glimpses of Lily hanging laundry on the line, beating rugs or fetching water from the well. Despite the physical labor, she moved with a quiet grace that drew his eye. By supper time, the entire house had been transformed. The windows sparkled, the floors shone, and even the leather chairs had been oiled and polished. The air smelled of soap and the beef stew simmering on the stove. "You've worked miracles," Beau said as they sat down to eat, "but you must be exhausted." Lily shook her head and wrote, "Work feels good, purpose." "I understand that," Beau nodded. "Still, tomorrow should be easier." Over the next few weeks, they fell into a comfortable routine. Beau worked the ranch tending to the cattle, mending fences, and handling the 1,000 tasks required to keep a small cattle operation running. Lily took charge of the household, cooking meals that far surpassed Beau's limited culinary skills, keeping the house clean, and even starting a small vegetable garden behind the house. Communication between them evolved naturally. Lily carried her slate for complex ideas, but they developed a system of gestures and expressions for everyday interactions. Beau found himself attuned to her needs, often anticipating what she wanted to say before she wrote it down. One evening in late June, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the mountains in hues of pink and gold, Beau realized how much his life had changed in the short time since Lily had arrived. Not just the improved comfort of a well-kept home and regular meals, but something more fundamental. The ranch no longer felt empty. It felt like a home. "I've been thinking," he said, breaking the comfortable silence between them. "Your 3-month contract period is almost halfway through. But there's no reason you have to leave when it's done. You could stay on with proper wages, of course, if you wanted to." Lily looked at him, surprise evident in her expression. She reached for her slate. "Why would you want me to stay?" Beau considered his words carefully. "You've made this place better. Not just the house, but—" He struggled to articulate feelings he wasn't accustomed to examining. "It's good not to be alone all the time." She studied him for a long moment, then wrote, "I'll think about it." Beau nodded, respecting her caution. "Of course. No rush to decide." July brought scorching heat to the Arizona territory. The creek that ran through the property shrank to a trickle, and the cattle clustered in what shade they could find. Beau spent long days ensuring the herd had enough water, often returning to the ranch house exhausted and heat-sick. One particularly brutal day, Beau staggered into the house, his shirt soaked with sweat, his face alarmingly red. Lily took one look at him and rushed to help him to a chair, her face creased with concern. "I'm fine," Beau insisted, though he felt lightheaded and nauseated. "Just need to sit a spell." Lily shook her head firmly and pressed a cool, damp cloth to his forehead. She guided him to his bedroom and gestured for him to lie down, then brought a pitcher of water and a cup to his bedside. Throughout the night, she tended to him, replacing the cool cloth on his forehead, helping him sip water and watching over him as his body fought the effects of heat stroke. In his feverish state, Beau found himself talking more than usual, sharing stories of his childhood in Kentucky, his experiences during the war, and his dreams for the ranch. "Always wanted a family," he murmured as dawn approached. "A wife, children playing in the yard, seems foolish now. What woman would want this hard life? What woman would want a man like me?" In his half-conscious state, he thought he felt gentle fingers brush the hair from his forehead, but he couldn't be sure it wasn't part of his fevered dreams. When Beau fully recovered 3 days later, he found the ranch had somehow continued running in his absence. Lily had not only maintained her household duties, but had also fed and watered the chickens, milked the cow, and somehow managed to move the nearest cattle to the shade of the cottonwoods along the creek. "How did you do all this?" Beau asked, amazed at her capability. Lily smiled and wrote, "I watched you. Not so difficult, not so difficult," Beau chuckled. "You're either being modest or I've been making my job look harder than it is." As July turned to August, Beau noticed subtle changes in their interaction. Lily seemed more relaxed around him, smiling more readily, occasionally touching his arm to get his attention instead of making a sound with her slate. For his part, Beau found himself increasingly aware of her presence, the scent of lavender soap that clung to her skin, the way sunlight caught in her hair, the graceful movement of her hands as she worked. One evening, as they sat at the table after supper, Lily wrote something on her slate and passed it to him. "Why have you never married?" The directness of the question startled him. "Never found the right woman, I suppose," he answered carefully. "Or perhaps the right woman never found me appealing enough." Lily raised an eyebrow skeptically. "What's that look for?" Beau asked, feeling self-conscious. She wrote, "You are kind, hardworking, and not unpleasant to look at." Beau felt heat rise to his face. "Well, thank you for that assessment," he said, trying to keep his tone light. "But out here, opportunities to meet suitable women are limited, and I've been focused on making the ranch successful." "Why did you really buy my contract?" Lily wrote, her expression serious. The sudden change of subject caught Beau off guard. "I told you," she shook her head and wrote, "the whole truth." Beau was silent for a long moment. "When I saw you standing there," he finally said, his voice low, "with your head held high despite everything, I saw someone who refused to be broken by circumstance. It reminded me of myself after the war. I had nothing, no home, no family, no purpose, but I refused to give up." He met her eyes. "You deserved the same chance I got to build something of your own, on your own terms." "Thank you for your honesty," Lily wrote, her eyes soft in the lamplight. Later that night, as Beau lay in bed staring at the ceiling, he confronted the truth he hadn't fully admitted to Lily or even to himself. From the moment he'd seen her on that auction block, something about her had called to him a recognition of a kindred spirit, perhaps. Whatever it was, it had grown stronger with each passing day, evolving into feelings he hadn't experienced before. The realization was both exhilarating and terrifying. Lily's contract would be fulfilled in less than a month. She might choose to leave to seek her fortune elsewhere, and even if she stayed, she might not welcome his feelings. He had purchased her contract, after all, placing him in a position of power that complicated any potential for a more personal relationship. The next morning, Beau made a decision. "I'm riding into town today for supplies," he told Lily at breakfast. "Is there anything you need?" She considered, then wrote, "Thread and some fabric if it's not too much trouble, and perhaps some seeds for the garden next spring." The last part caught Beau's attention. Next spring. Was she planning to stay? "I'll get them," he promised. "I should be back by supper time." In Jerome Junction, Beau completed his errands efficiently, purchasing the thread and fabric Lily had requested, along with a variety of vegetable and flower seeds. As an afterthought, he stopped at the small bookshop on the edge of town and selected several books he thought she might enjoy: a volume of poetry, a novel, and a practical guide to gardening in the Arizona Territory. As he was loading his purchases into the wagon, a familiar voice called his name. He turned to see Sheriff Tom Wallace approaching. "Beau Blackstone," the sheriff said, extending his hand. "Haven't seen you in town for a spell." "Been busy at the ranch," Beau replied, shaking the offered hand. "How have you been, Tom?" "Can't complain." The sheriff's eyes drifted to the parcels in Beau's wagon. "Fabric and books, branching out in your old age." Beau felt oddly defensive. "They're for Miss Shaw, my housekeeper." "Ah, yes, the mute girl from the auction." Sheriff Wallace's expression grew serious. "That's partly why I wanted to talk to you. Had some inquiries about her." Beau stiffened. "What kind of inquiries?" "Man came through last week asking about a young blonde woman who can't speak. Said she was his niece and had run away from home in Colorado. Claimed she was simple-minded and needed supervision." "That's a lie," Beau said flatly. "Miss Shaw is far from simple-minded, and she told me her uncle died in a mining accident last year." The sheriff raised an eyebrow. "Told you, thought she couldn't speak." "She writes," Beau clarified. "She's educated and intelligent. This man, whoever he is lying." "Well, he had papers," Sheriff Wallace said. "Legal guardianship documents for a Lilian Shaw. Said she'd been declared incompetent by a judge in Denver due to her muteness and weak female mind." Beau's hands clenched into fists. "That's absurd. Lily manages my entire household. She reads, writes, and is sharper than most men I know." He narrowed his eyes. "What did you tell this man?" "Told him I'd keep an eye out," the sheriff said carefully. "Didn't mention you specifically, but Jerome Junction's a small town, Beau. People talk. Someone's bound to tell him about the auction if he asks around enough." "When did he say he'd be back?" "Didn't say specifically. Mentioned he had business in Prescott first." The sheriff studied Beau's face. "You care about this girl." It wasn't a question, but Beau answered anyway. "I do. And I won't let some stranger take her against her will, legal papers or not." "Be careful, Beau," Sheriff Wallace warned. "Don't do anything foolish. If his papers are legitimate." "They can't be," Beau interrupted. "Not if they claim she's incompetent. That's a lie, plain and simple." The sheriff sighed. "Just watch yourself and her. I'll send word if I hear anything more." The ride back to the ranch seemed interminable as Beau's mind raced with this new information. Who was this man claiming to be Lily's guardian? What did he want with her? The obvious answer, access to a young, vulnerable woman, made Beau's blood boil. When he finally arrived home, Lily met him at the door with a smile that faded as she took in his troubled expression. She tilted her head questioningly. "We need to talk," Beau said, carrying his purchases inside. "Something's happened." Over supper, Beau related his conversation with the sheriff, watching Lily's face pale as he described the man claiming to be her guardian. "You know who this might be?" he asked when he'd finished. Lily's hands trembled slightly as she wrote, "Leonard Stokes." "Not my uncle, my uncle's business partner. After Uncle died, he tried to force me to marry him, said a mute woman should be grateful for any offer. I refused. He became violent. I ran away." "Why didn't you tell me this before?" Beau asked, concern rather than accusation in his voice. She hesitated, then wrote, "Ashamed. Afraid you wouldn't believe me. Afraid he would find me." "I believe you," Beau said firmly. "And I won't let him take you anywhere against your will." "But what can we do? He has papers." Beau thought for a moment. "Papers can be challenged." "We can go to Prescott, see a proper judge. Prove you're fully capable of managing your own affairs." Lily shook her head vehemently and wrote, "He has money. Influences people. Uncle trusted him. I had no proof of his true nature until too late." "Then we'll find another way," Beau said, determination hardening his voice. "I promise to be your voice until you heal. I meant it. If this man comes here, I'll make sure he understands that you're under my protection." For the first time since he'd known her, Beau saw tears well in Lily's eyes. She wrote quickly, "Why would you risk yourself for me?" Beau reached across the table and gently took her hand. "Because you matter to me, Lily, more than I realized until today." The simple admission hung in the air between them, changing everything and nothing at once. Lily squeezed his hand, her eyes expressing what her voice could not. That night, Beau checked and loaded his rifle before placing it near his bed. He wasn't a violent man by nature, but he would defend Lily with his life if necessary. The thought of Leonard Stokes forcing her into marriage or worse filled him with a cold rage unlike anything he'd felt before. The next several days passed in a state of heightened alertness. Beau made sure Lily was never alone outside the house, and they developed a signal system in case of danger. Despite the tension, or perhaps because of it, something shifted in their relationship. The unspoken attraction between them became impossible to ignore, manifesting in lingering glances, casual touches, and a deepening emotional intimacy. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Lily handed Beau her slate. On it she had written, "Your contract for my services ends next week. I want to stay, but not as your housekeeper." Beau felt his heart skip a beat. "What do you want, Lily?" She took the slate back and wrote carefully, "To be your partner, in all things." "Are you certain?" Beau asked, hardly daring to hope she meant what he thought she did. She nodded, her eyes never leaving his. "I've been falling in love with you," Beau admitted quietly. "But I didn't want to speak of it while you were still under contract. It didn't seem right." Lily smiled and wrote, "I've been falling in love with you too. Your kindness, your respect, your strength." Beau reached out and gently traced her cheek with his fingertips. "May I kiss you, Lily?" Her answer was to lean forward, closing the distance between them. Their first kiss was gentle, tentative, a question and an answer all at once. When they parted, Lily's eyes were bright with emotion. "I want you to be my partner too," Beau whispered. "In all things, if you'll have me." Lily nodded, her smile radiant in the fading light. Their newfound happiness, however, was short-lived. 3 days later, as Beau was repairing a fence line at the far end of the property, he heard the distant sound of a horse approaching the ranch house. Through his spyglass, he could see a well-dressed man dismounting in front of the house where Lily was alone. Beau mounted his horse immediately, urging it to a gallop across the pasture. By the time he reached the house, he could hear raised voices, or rather, one raised voice. A man's angry tone carried through the open door. "You're coming with me, Lilian. These papers give me legal right as your guardian. Your weak mind and unfortunate condition make you incapable of making decisions for yourself." Beau burst through the door to find Lily backed against the kitchen wall, her face pale but defiant. The man confronting her was tall and expensively dressed, with cold eyes and a cruel twist to his mouth. "Get away from her," Beau commanded, his voice deadly quiet. Leonard Stokes turned, his expression changing from anger to calculated charm. "Ah, you must be Blackstone. I'm Leonard Stokes, Lilian's legal guardian. I appreciate you looking after my ward, but I've come to take her home where she belongs." "She doesn't belong with you," Beau said firmly. "And she's not going anywhere she doesn't want to go." Stokes produced a folded document from his coat pocket. "This legal document says otherwise, signed by a judge in Denver. Lilian Shaw is declared incompetent due to her inability to speak and her female frailty of mind. As her nearest male relative by marriage to her late mother's sister, I am her legal guardian." "That's a lie," Beau stated flatly. "Lily is one of the most competent, intelligent people I know, and she's told me about you, Stokes, how you tried to force her to marry you after her uncle died. How you became violent when she refused." Stokes laughed dismissively. "Told you, she's mute and prone to fabrication and fantasy, as the judge noted in his ruling." His expression hardened. "Now step aside. Lilian is coming with me." "No, she isn't," Beau said, moving to stand between Stokes and Lily. "I purchased her contract in good faith. It doesn't expire for 3 more days. After that, she's a free woman able to make her own choices." "A contract purchased from that swindler Mercer," Stokes scoffed. "Illegal and worthless. He had no right to sell what wasn't his. Lilian was already my legal ward when she ran away." Lily moved to Beau's side, her face resolute. She took her slate and wrote quickly, showing it to Stokes. "I will never go with you. I would rather die." "You see," Stokes sneered. "Hysterical female talk. This is exactly why the judge ruled as he did." He took a step toward them. "I have friends in Prescott, Blackstone. The territorial governor is an associate of mine. If you interfere with my legal rights, you'll regret it." Beau remained unmoved. "Get off my property, Stokes. Now." For a tense moment, the two men stared at each other, the air thick with unspoken threats. Then Stokes smiled coldly. "Very well. I'll go for now. But I'll be back tomorrow with the sheriff and enough men to enforce the law. Prepare yourself, Lilian. You're coming home with me one way or another." He turned and strode out of the house. After the sound of hoofbeats faded, Beau turned to Lily, who was trembling slightly despite her brave face. "We need to leave," Beau said decisively. "Tonight. He'll be back with men, just as he threatened." Lily wrote frantically. "Where can we go? He has connections everywhere." "California," Beau decided. "We'll sell the cattle and ranch later through intermediaries. I have some savings. Enough to start over." He paused, suddenly uncertain. "That is, if you want to come with me." "I won't force you to." Lily silenced him by placing her fingers gently against his lips. She wrote, "Where you go, I go. We are partners now." "Yes," Beau agreed, his resolve strengthening. "Partners. But there's something we should do first, if you're willing." He knelt before her, taking her hands in his. "Lilian Shaw, I love you. Will you marry me? Not because of Stokes or his threats, but because I want to spend my life with you, building something beautiful together." Tears filled Lily's eyes as she nodded emphatically, pulling Beau to his feet and into her arms. "We'll find a minister in Prescott," Beau said, holding her close. "Then head west immediately. We'll need to travel light and fast." Through the night, they prepared for their journey. Beau selected his best horses for their escape, packing only essential supplies and the money he'd saved over the years. Lily gathered clothing, food, and a few precious mementos, including the books Beau had bought her in town. Before dawn, they were ready. Beau took one last look at the ranch house that had been his home for 5 years. The lazy bee represented everything he'd worked for, but as he turned to see Lily mounted on her horse beside him, he knew he was taking the most valuable part with him. "No regrets?" he asked. Lily shook her head, determination in her eyes. They rode hard through the day, taking back trails and game paths to avoid the main road where Stokes might have posted men. By nightfall, they reached Prescott, the territorial capital. Rather than risk being seen in town, they found a small church on the outskirts where an elderly minister lived in a cottage behind the sanctuary. Reverend Joseph Miller was initially reluctant to perform a wedding so late in the evening, but something in Beau's earnest explanation and Lily's expressive eyes convinced him of their sincerity. "God's love doesn't keep business hours," the old minister finally said with a gentle smile. "And neither should his servants." In the small church lit only by a few candles, Beau and Lily exchanged vows. When it came time for Lily's responses, Beau, true to his promise, spoke for her. "I, Beau, speak now for Lilian, who has chosen me to be her voice," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "She pledges to love, honor, and cherish me in good times and bad, in sickness and health, until death parts us." Reverend Miller, touched by this unusual accommodation, pronounced them husband and wife with visible emotion. "What God has joined together, let no man put asunder," he declared. After signing the marriage certificate, Lily's elegant signature, beside Beau's more rugged one, they continued their journey under cover of darkness. They traveled northwest, avoiding settlements where Stokes might have connections, camping in hidden valleys and forests. 3 weeks later, they crossed into California, finally allowing themselves to breathe easier. They settled temporarily in a small coastal town where no one knew them, taking rooms at a modest boarding house while they considered their next steps. "We could go north to Oregon," Beau suggested one evening as they walked along the beach. "I hear the Willamette Valley is good cattle country, or we could stay here in California." Lily wrote on her ever-present slate, "What do you want to be with you?" Beau answered simply, "Everything else is negotiable." Over the next month, they explored the area, eventually finding a small parcel of land for sale just outside town. It wasn't as large as the Lazy Bee, but the soil was rich, with a year-round stream and proximity to markets where Beau could sell livestock. "It's a good piece of land," Beau said as they stood on a hill overlooking the property. "We could build a house there by that cluster of oak trees, run some cattle on the north section, maybe grow some crops too." Lily squeezed his hand and wrote, "Our home." With the money Beau had brought from Arizona, they purchased the land and began building a simple but sturdy house. Beau hired local men to help with the construction, while he and Lily planned every detail together. By winter, the main structure was complete enough for them to move in, though many finishing touches remained to be added. Their first Christmas in their new home was a quiet celebration of how far they had come. Beau presented Lily with a small pine tree decorated with ribbons and candles, along with a special gift he'd commissioned from a craftsman in town, a beautiful wooden box containing paper, pens, and ink. "For your words," he explained as she opened it. "Your thoughts deserve better than chalk dust." Lily's gift to him was a handcrafted quilt she'd secretly been making, each square representing a moment in their journey together, the Lazy Bee. Their wedding, their arrival in California, the building of their new home. That night, as they lay in each other's arms, Beau marveled at how completely his life had changed in less than a year. From a solitary existence to this profound connection, from one home to another, from speaking only for himself to speaking for the woman he loved. "Are you happy?" he whispered in the darkness. Lily took his hand and placed it over her heart, then nodded against his shoulder. With the new year came unexpected news. A letter arrived from Sheriff Wallace in Jerome Junction, forwarded through several intermediaries to protect their location. "Leonard Stokes," the sheriff wrote, had met with an unfortunate accident while pursuing another young woman who had rejected his advances. He had fallen from a balcony at the Silver Dollar Saloon and broken his neck. The investigation had uncovered evidence that the guardianship papers he'd presented regarding Lilian Shaw were forgeries, created after her uncle's death to gain control of the modest inheritance she was owed. "You're free," Beau told Lily after reading the letter aloud. "Truly free. We could even return to Arizona if you wanted." Lily considered this, then wrote carefully in her new journal, "This is our home now, but I would like my inheritance. It rightfully belongs to us, to our future." "I'll write to Tom," Beau agreed. "He can help arrange for the transfer of funds." He paused. "I should also arrange to sell the Lazy Bee properly. I left in such a hurry, everything's still in limbo." Over the following months, their life settled into a pleasant rhythm. Beau purchased cattle and began building his herd, while Lily established a vegetable garden and planted fruit trees that would bear in future years. They added a barn and corral to the property, and Beau hired 2 local boys to help with the livestock. In late spring, Lily began to experience morning sickness. When she realized what it meant, she spent an entire day working on a special note for Beau, wanting to find the perfect words for this momentous news. That evening, she presented him with a beautifully written page from her journal. "Our love has created something miraculous. By winter, there will be 3 of us. Your voice has been mine since the day we met. Now our child will have both our voices and perhaps the gift of speech that I have never known." Beau read the words 3 times, his hands trembling slightly. When he looked up, his eyes were bright with unshed tears. "A child," he whispered. "Our child." He gathered Lily in his arms, holding her as if she were made of precious glass. "I love you," he murmured against her hair. "More than I ever thought possible." As Lily's pregnancy progressed, Beau became increasingly protective, insisting on hiring help for the heavier household tasks. A local midwife, Mrs. Hernandez, began regular visits, communicating easily with Lily through gestures and written notes. "Your wife is healthy and strong," Mrs. Hernandez assured Beau. "The baby grows well, but I am concerned about her inability to speak during the delivery. It helps to be able to follow instructions." "I'll be with her," Beau said firmly. "I'll be her voice as always." "That is good," the midwife nodded. "The bond between you is strong. It will help." On a stormy December night, Lily went into labor. Outside, rain lashed against the windows and thunder shook the house as Beau sent a ranch hand to fetch Mrs. Hernandez. By the time the midwife arrived, soaked and breathless, Lily's contractions were coming rapidly. "The baby comes quickly," Mrs. Hernandez exclaimed after examining Lily. "It is good I came when I did." Through the long hours of labor, Beau never left Lily's side, wiping her brow, supporting her back, and interpreting her gestures and expressions for the midwife. "She needs to push now," he translated as Lily clutched his hand with desperate intensity. "Yes, push with the next pain," Mrs. Hernandez instructed. Lily's face contorted with effort as she bore down, her body straining with the ancient work of bringing new life into the world. Though she made no sound, her determination was palpable in every line of her body. "The head comes, Mrs. Hernandez announced. Once more, Senora Blackstone. With a final mighty effort, Lily delivered their child into the midwife's waiting hands. For a breathless moment, the only sound was the rain against the windows. Then a thin, indignant wail filled the room. "A son, Mrs. Hernandez proclaimed, quickly cleaning and wrapping the squalling infant. "Strong lungs on this one." She placed the baby on Lily's chest, where he immediately quieted, blinking up at his mother with unfocused eyes. Lily gazed down at him in wonder, tears of joy streaming down her face. "Hello, my son," Beau whispered, gently touching the downy head. "Welcome to the world, Samuel Thomas Blackstone." They had chosen the name months before Samuel for Beau's father, Thomas for Lily's uncle who had brought her west. Now, seeing their child for the first time, the name seemed to fit perfectly. Mrs. Hernandez smiled at the new family. "He is perfect, and he has his father's eyes, I think." As dawn broke, painting the sky with delicate pinks and golds, Beau sat beside the bed where Lily and Samuel slept. He marveled at how his life had transformed from solitude to this abundance of love, all because he had been unable to stand by and watch a young woman sold for a condition she couldn't control. "I will always be your voice," he promised softly to his sleeping wife. "And I will teach our son to respect the strength it takes to navigate a world that doesn't always understand your way of communicating." In the months that followed Samuel's birth, their home filled with joy and new routines. Lily proved to be a natural mother, attentive and loving. Beau found himself constantly amazed by her ability to communicate with their son through touch, expression, and gesture, a language that seemed as natural to Samuel as breathing. By his first birthday, Samuel was crawling everywhere and beginning to pull himself up to stand. He babbled constantly, a stream of sounds that weren't quite words but seemed to convey his thoughts perfectly well to his mother. "He's going to be talking soon," Beau remarked one evening as they watched Samuel playing on a blanket near the fireplace. "I wonder what his first word will be." Lily smiled and wrote in her journal, "Perhaps horse. He loves watching you with them." "Or mama," Beau suggested. "He adores you." Their peaceful life was briefly interrupted that spring when Beau received official notice that the Lazy Bee had been sold, with the proceeds deposited in a bank in San Francisco. Combined with Lily's recovered inheritance from her uncle, they now had substantial financial security. "We could expand," Beau suggested. "Buy more land, increase the herd." Lily considered this, then wrote, "Let's build the life we want, not just the biggest ranch we could have." "What do you want, Lily?" Beau asked, genuinely curious. She wrote thoughtfully, "A home filled with love. Perhaps more children. Enough land to sustain us, but not so much that you're always working. And maybe something else for me, a garden large enough to sell produce in town, or flowering plants to sell to the ladies' society." "Then that's what we'll do," Beau agreed. They expanded modestly, purchasing an adjacent 20 acres with good water access. Beau hired another permanent ranch hand, allowing him more time with his family. Lily established a thriving market garden and began selling cut flowers to the town's hotel and restaurants. Shortly after Samuel's second birthday, by which time he was speaking in simple sentences and showing a remarkable ability to understand his mother's gestures, Lily discovered she was expecting their second child. This pregnancy was easier than the first, perhaps because Lily knew what to expect, or perhaps because their life was more settled. When the time came, Mrs. Hernandez was once again present, as was Beau, serving as Lily's voice through the delivery. Their daughter, Elizabeth Marie Blackstone, arrived on a clear autumn morning, her birth quick and uncomplicated. Unlike her brother, she made almost no sound when she entered the world, merely blinking solemnly up at her parents with deep blue eyes. "She's like you," Beau whispered to Lily, observing everything, taking it all in. For a moment, a shadow of concern crossed Lily's face. Would her daughter also be unable to speak? Beau, reading her thoughts as he so often did, squeezed her hand. "Whatever comes, we'll face it together. Every child is a gift, exactly as they are." Lily's worry proved unnecessary. By 6 months, Elizabeth was babbling as her brother had, and by her first birthday, she was attempting words. Samuel, now 3, had appointed himself his sister's protector and interpreter, often announcing Lizzie wants. Before his parents had even realized, she was trying to communicate something. One summer evening, as the children played in the yard and Beau and Lily sat on the porch watching them, Beau reflected on the journey that had brought them here. 5 years ago today, he said quietly, I saw you standing on that auction block in Jerome Junction. You looked so proud, so defiant despite everything. Lily smiled and reached for her journal, which was never far from her side. She wrote, "You saved me that day." "No," Beau disagreed gently. "You saved yourself with your courage. I just offered a hand." He paused. "And you saved me too, from a life of solitude I hadn't even realized was lonely until you filled it with your presence." On the lawn, Samuel was showing Elizabeth how to pet a grasshopper without hurting it, his voice patient as he explained, "Gentle, Lizzie. Like Mama shows us." Lily wrote, "They are the best of both of us. Your voice, my heart. Your strength," Beau added. "Our love." As twilight deepened into dusk, Beau lit the lamps inside the house. Samuel carried his sleepy sister to the porch, her head resting trustingly on his shoulder. "Story time, Papa?" he asked hopefully. "Of course," Beau agreed, lifting Elizabeth from Samuel's arms. "Let's go inside." Later, after the children were asleep, Beau and Lily sat by the fire, her head resting against his shoulder as they enjoyed a rare moment of quiet togetherness. "I never told you," Beau said softly, "but that day in Jerome Junction, when I said your voice would be mine until you healed, I thought perhaps someday you might speak, that your muteness might be temporary, caused by trauma or illness." Lily sat up and looked at him questioningly. "I know now that's not the case," Beau continued. "And it doesn't matter. You communicate more clearly than most people who speak endlessly without saying anything of value." Lily reached for her journal and wrote, "I have never felt the absence of my voice as a loss since the day you promised to speak for me. You gave me something more valuable than words. You gave me understanding. And you gave me a family," Beau responded, his voice thick with emotion. "A purpose beyond myself. Love I never thought I'd find." Outside, the California night was alive with the sound of crickets and the distant surf. Inside, the home they had built together was warm with the accumulated treasures of their life, children's drawings pinned to walls, Samuel's first pair of boots by the door, Elizabeth's wooden blocks scattered on a rug, and most precious of all, the journal filled with Lily's thoughts and observations, a record of their love and life together. "I'll always be your voice," Beau promised, drawing Lily close, "for as long as you want me to be." Lily kissed him in response, her eyes conveying what words spoken or written could never fully express. That some bonds transcend language, that some connections need no translation, and that love in its purest form speaks in 1,000 ways beyond words. In the years that followed, their family and ranch flourished. Samuel grew into a thoughtful young man who inherited his father's practicality and his mother's observant nature. Elizabeth developed a gift for art, capturing the beauty of their coastal home in delicate watercolors that expressed what others might have used words to describe. And though Lily never spoke aloud, her voice became known throughout the community through her journals, which eventually found their way into print, published under the title Silent Wisdom, Reflections of a Woman's Heart in the American West. Her insights into love, family, and resilience touched readers across the country, many of whom wrote letters expressing how her words had given voice to their own unspoken thoughts. Beau, true to his promise made that fateful day in Jerome Junction, remained her voice in public settings throughout their long life together, speaking for her when needed, but always careful to ensure it was her thoughts, her wishes, her wisdom being conveyed. Their love story, which began with an auction and a promise, became legendary in their community not just for its unusual beginning, but for the profound partnership it demonstrated, a union of complementary strengths that created something greater than either could have achieved alone. And in the end, it wasn't about the words spoken or unspoken, but about the life they built together, a life rich with meaning, purpose, and the quiet miracle of being truly understood.